After just 7 days, 96% of Shiseido Benefiance Wrinkle Smoothing Eye Cream users saw reduced wrinkles and diminished dark circles. Shop now at Sephora and discover how change can happen in the blink of an eye. Consumer tested by 110 women.
If you thought goldenly breaded McDonald's chicken couldn't get more golden, think Golder! Because new sweet and smoky special edition gold sauce is here. Made for your chicken favorites.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
You're listening to Dr. Emma and me on the Tudors Dynasty and Beyond podcast. And now, here are your hosts.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Rebecca Larson, and I'm joined again today by my best friend in the whole world, Dr. Emma. Welcome.
Rebecca, can you guess where I am?
I know. I'm so excited. You're back home again. We're back in the normal setting. All is well.
Who's back?
Oh no, I forgot all about that.
No, how could you forget about that?
I know. Anybody who's been following us for any time gets that inside joke. Anybody who doesn't, you're gonna have to go back and watch.
Yes, exactly. Back again.
Yes. Well, before we get into talking about last week's episode and talking about today's episode, we have to tease because we are less than a week away now from your course that launches on September 17th. So if somebody has not purchased their ticket yet, tell them why they should. Tell them why.
It's the time because there's a week left, basically. Working very, very quickly to get everything ready. I'm so excited. It's been a great review of a ton of stuff I have from over the years traveling in Spain, studying the Spanish history. And my main focus, as you know, is Catherine of Aragon. So studying her childhood was the first research I really did. So it's been an emotional, amazing journey. I can say it's heavy on the featuring Spain.
Ooh, I'm so excited for this course, you guys. And I cannot wait to share it with you. So if you haven't purchased your tickets yet, there's going to be links in the show notes. I promise it's totally worth it. It's a 6-week online course. You don't have to watch it live. We understand everybody's schedules are busy, so everything is pre-recorded. You have until like the beginning of December to watch everything. So even if the timing isn't quite right, you can still have access to this. And I'm so excited to share it with everybody.
Yeah, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions. You get a direct line to my email and get the questions going too. It's going to be a forum, really, I think. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. Thank you to the people who've already signed up. I can't wait to see you next week.
Oh, I'm excited too. All right. Well, let's talk about last week because I have some bad news and I need to let you know that Cher did not contact us.
I know it. She's just playing difficult, but I know she'll come around.
I did have some cute comments too. There was one on Spotify where looks like Julie R said Daniel Craig is her favorite James Bond. And she definitely agrees that Henry Cavill would be a wonderful successor.
Well, I think he's still in the cards for a lot of people, even the people making the movie. So I hope it's in the cards for Henry. Henry, come on.
Yeah.
The right time for him, He's in his early 40s. He can do this. I think he should for all of us and for himself.
but especially for us.
For everyone. Everybody wants to see him as James Bond at this point. He's like, come on already.
Yeah, and I feel like the last episode we got quite a few comments again just on the topic in general, which you are always so good at replying to. So thank you for doing that because when they ask these questions, it's for you. It's not for me.
I hope I can get all the questions answered. I don't always know the answer, but I try my best to at least acknowledge questions. If I don't, it's mere time restraint. But I it's very interesting to me because I do want to know what the people's feedback. That gives me a lot of insight into really what sparks people's interest. What is really what you try to do as an art historian is tell a story, but also make it compelling so people want to come back and learn more so you can get funding for your research.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're, talking about research, I think the two people that we are doing parallel lives on today are ones that, at least for me, one of them I've been learning about and reading about for, gosh, decades. The other
Mhm.
one is a little bit more foreign to me. Foreign, get it?
Yes, I do get it. It's very funny because he's foreign to me too. Even though I took a DNA test once and turns out I'm 10% French.
Oh,
Yeah,
I guess I'm not too surprised. You do a French accent pretty well.
I know. I'm not going to give it away all in one go, but yes, we're talking today about someone French, very French, the Frenchest Frenchman there ever was, probably. Francis the First of France, right?
Yes, the Frenchiest of the French.
The Frenchiest Frenchie there ever was. The Frenchiest Frenchie, that could be his nickname.
Yeah, I like that. I like that one. I think that one's gonna stick. So we're talking about Francis the First and his best friend in the whole wide world, Henry the
Best
Eighth.
friend or frenemy.
Yeah, well, it's a little, it's like
Complicated relationship. You remember on Facebook there used to be that status?
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
They always say there's a thin line between love and hate, right?
Exactly, especially between two bros, right? Like Henry VIII and of
Love,
England,
I love
who
that
is
you
the other person in parallel lives today. And parallels, they died within 2 months of each other. So England first and then France had these two bros as kings for some time. They messed up quite a bit, these bros.
I can't stop. You gotta stop calling. I can't.
This is gonna go when you told me I could do this episode.
I
Don't
know.
come to me saying you didn't think I was gonna say this right off the bat.
Bros. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll get my focus
They
back
went
here.
through phases in their bromance.
They sure did. They definitely
Yeah.
did.
Like,
But
bring this beer to here. I'm gonna.
it is so fascinating that they died so close together. I mean, obviously Henry VIII died at the end of January
Yeah.
1547. And wasn't Francis like
Yes.
March-ish? Oh,
Yes.
wow. I
But
really
that
pulled that out.
also tells you the mortality in the 16th century is very linked to the weather, the winters. Living through a winter was important. So, and France is not like the hottest place in Paris, is where Francis was living. Was not, there was all types of things. So yes, there were. Francis was slightly younger than Henry, so maybe wasn't really his time maybe to die, but Henry, we know what Henry had for the last, I don't know, since 36, really, right? When Catherine of Aragon dies and
Mm.
he falls off a horse and everything goes wrong for him.
It-
Karma.
I was just gonna say, you seem real torn up about it. I think we know how you feel about Henry VIII.
Yes. I have a love-hate relationship with Henry VIII. He was obviously the guy paying the bills. So, and he's being considered one of the biggest, or the biggest patron of the arts in the Tudor dynasty. But you scratch a little bit into his finances and where he's coming from and the people who are working for him, and you're like, he's just taking people's things and his wife's artists and influence and networks to just be a Renaissance king, which was normal. And that's what Francis was doing. That's what Charles V was doing. Just Henry was a bit more like, I just want everybody to think it was me. I'm going to burn everything that is not saying it's me. We're going to rewrite history. But here comes an annoying Spanish art historian of the 21st century, Dr. Emma, to say, wait a second here. This seems to not add up that, Catherine of Aragon is the daughter of the biggest patron of the arts in early 16th century, Isabel of Castile. And then she does nothing and she dies, and Henry VIII is the coolest dude that brings Holbein and all these people. Nah, I didn't buy
So
that. So that's what I did for my dissertation, really, to prove that Henry was not alone in his patronage of the arts. Catherine of Aragon played a huge role.
So is this a parallel with Francis the First? Did he learn this from his wives, or was he already a Renaissance prince?
Ooh.
I mean, he had his sister. His sister Marguerite seemed to be quite the Renaissance woman.
Yeah. I think that, I've attended conferences talking about these Valois women as being very, very active patrons of the arts. So these men were always influenced by the women who took care of domestic affairs and were just helping them, right? His sister's the one who bails him out when he's captured and taken to Madrid.
I love that.
I've said this before, but I'll say it again. If I could go back in time to those time of years, I think I would go to see the fight between Francis and Henry in the Field of Cloth of Gold,
Yeah.
just to see Henry humiliated. And then I would go to see Francis in Madrid after he's captured by and be like, "How you doing now, buddy?"
My gosh. How you doing now, bruh?
Yeah, bruh. How's it going? Oh, your sister called. She said we're gonna negotiate a peace to take you out of here, okay? But your two sons are coming.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Sure, take me home."
Yeah, 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 exactly. Exchange me for my sons. I'm cool with that. I got another one.
Dang, they're just the heir and the spare.
Jeez. Yeah, I don't think Henry VIII would have behaved that way because sons were so precious to him. I think he would have been like, "How about I send my daughter Mary?"
Yeah, but daughters, Henry was like, "This married girl, ugh, I'll send it to you, to anyone, really.
Yeah, yeah,
She thinks she
exactly.
can be a queen, okay."
Well, let's talk more about the art and
Mm.
Francis the First and his patronage of art or how he influenced it.
Oof. In this case, Francis wins, right?
Wow, that kind of surprises me.
He wins to Henry. Henry, with the help of Catherine Aragon, brings Torrellano, brings Holbein to England, which
Yeah.
are incredible, right? Torrellano is a leading artist from Florence who broke Michelangelo's nose. So he's that important, right? He works for Margaret of Austria and that goes to England. And then Holbein is working for the Habsburgs and Erasmus of Rotterdam when Erasmus of Rotterdam writes some letters of recommendation, writes a book for Catherine of Aragon, and that's how Holbein ends in England,
Hmm.
ends up in England, right? But in the case of Francis the First of France, he manages to bring Leonardo da Vinci to France and the Mona Lisa, probably the most famous painting in the world.
Yeah, most recognizable for sure.
Yes. So, the only Ninja Turtle who ever left Italy was Leonardo.
It was bound to come up. You guys, as soon as she said Leonardo, I knew the Ninja Turtles were coming up.
Well, Raphael never left. Don't I tell him? I should have looked this up before making it. It just came up to my mind, but definitely he dies there. Makes a big deal. He dies in Francis's arms. Francis is devastated because he's like, "This is my real bro, not that English dude."
Wow. In
Yeah,
his arms.
yeah. Well, there's a famous depiction of him with it. It's all dramatized always, but yes, he was obsessed with Da Vinci. Da Vinci was the ultimate artist. He was not just a portrait painter, the Mona Lisa, but he was an engineer, just a genius. One of these personalities that you ever go to an art history bookshop or a section, and Leonardo is always like the most, the most famous one, with Michelangelo probably. But I think even Leonardo more with the Last Supper and the Mona Lisa. By
Mhm.
the way, this is something people don't know that's very important. There's a version of the Mona Lisa painted by Leonardo's workshop in the Museo Nacional del Prado in Madrid. Did you know that?
I did not. I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, you shouldn't be surprised.
Is it on display?
Thank you. I didn't look that up this morning. I should.
I'm sorry.
I think so. Let me just Google it really quick. I think so.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
It's
to.
certainly very famous. It's a bit bigger than the original. It's magnificent, of course, and it's painted by the artist's workshop, so it's just incredible. These men, what this means, because it is in the Prado Museum, is there's three men: Charles V and his descendants, Francis I and his descendants, and Henry VIII and his descendants through Mary I, are the ones to commission these great artists at this time, right? And the ones to collect the works of these artists. They start to be obsessed with the great masters, Raphael, Leonardo.
With these great turtles.
I mean, they're ninjas and they're turtles, and
What more do you want?
they're
Ninjas,
so
turtles.
they're superheroes, but they're relatable.
You know what? In my head, I just suddenly heard Heroes in a Half Shell, Turtle Power.
I know. Welcome to my world. Since we ever started talking about them. And now, anytime anyone goes to a conference and they hear these names, I was listening to a conference the other day on YouTube, and I heard the names, and Turtle Power came to my brain. So thank you thank you, Rebecca and me, for doing this to everyone.
I know. Hey, you know what? I love it. Who doesn't love a little bit of nostalgia from our childhood? And
exactly. And you go to the stores and they're still, kids still like them.
yeah,
Right? They're timeless. They're timeless classics, just like the Renaissance artists. Oh my God. How could I say that?
I was just gonna say you just compared the Ninja Turtles cartoon to Renaissance artists.
The best Renaissance artists there ever was.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we need to just do a whole episode on the Ninja Turtles to get it out of our system, I think.
Well, yes, the parallel lives of the Ninja Turtles as their Renaissance artists, right? But we already started with Leonardo, who dies in the arms of Francis I, just a year short of him having a fight with Henry VIII.
Oh.
Probably he was enraged still by the death of his best pal.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent, savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast Gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast Gems.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Well, Henry and Francis did really have kind of a love-hate relationship, didn't they? I think one of my favorite things that you've talked about was how Henry VIII grew a beard because Francis had one.
Exactly. So they have a meeting. They meet in person. That's always, one thing is to meet someone. Oh, the King of France, the new King of France is this Francis of Orleans, blah blah blah. And he's like, who? Because he wasn't somebody. I mean, he was, but he wasn't, right?
Right.
So Louis the 12th, whom Mary Rose Tudor, see where we're connecting here, marries, and she's like, he's the most oldest man in the world, and he suddenly dies. I don't know, Mary Rose. Mary had a thing about herself, and she goes on and marries Henry Cavill, right? We left it there. So we didn't say what happens when Louis the 12th dies. Is that Francis I, born in Cognac and from the royal family, but like a secondary figure, rises to power and becomes Francis I. And there's nothing like a guy who wasn't, going to be king to become king of France. And he's like, oh, ready for action. And he's young. He's only 20. And then Henry has only been in power for 6 years, because this happened in 15, when he's crowned, when Francis is crowned. And Henry's been a king with Catherine for almost 6 years. So he's a young king, but he's older, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So Catherine, Francis kind of has to compete with that. He's probably and the King of England and King of France have always had a rivalry, right?
Yes. Well, and that was one of the things that I was thinking about when it comes to these two men too, is their pursuit of military power. And, Henry always wanted to be able to claim some of France back for England again. And it seems like Francis was the same as far as wanting to show his military prowess. Like, oh yeah, look what I can do. You think you can do this? I can do a little better.
And who won that battle?
Not Henry.
Charles V. I'm sorry,
Yes.
boys, but the little man from Ghent was the most powerful dude. When he's elected Holy Roman Emperor, he succeeds Fernando II of Aragon, who dies in 1516. Charles becomes King of Spain. He's elected Holy Roman Emperor, and he's little but mighty then. And he starts traveling around his own empire, goes to England several times to try and maintain that growing empire. And he has a very, very active confrontation with Francis I, tries to be Henry VIII's ally and is for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that breaks off too. But I mean, Francis I and Henry VIII both lost that battle to Charles V. He became the most powerful man in Europe. So, they were having little fights in the field of cloth of gold. That was cute. But the guy really calling the shots in that time is Charles V.
Yeah, now that you say that, that does make more sense because after the Field of Cloth of Gold, Henry changed his mind and made some alliance with Charles, didn't he?
Yes. So let's put everybody in perspective. We've mentioned the Field of Cloth of Gold a couple of times, maybe explaining a little bit what it was. It helps. It was a dynastic meeting between the Valois and the Tudors in France. So Henry and Catherine and their entourages and Wolsey traveled from Dover into Calais, into that possession they had in the north of France, and from there went to Guines to meet with Francis. But not only that, they displayed a magnificent court, each of them, with all the artists working to create these castles and these fountains and these things. So it was a competition to see who was more magnificent, right?
Yeah.
And there was there's a very detailed description of what happens and the events that happen there. And we know this is when Francis and Catherine of Aragon also met. They dined together. This is all depicted in that famous painting in Hampton Court Palace, the different scenes, and you can kind of match the chronicle to the scenes. It's cute. One of the things described is that Henry and Francis got into a fight because they were doing wrestling, right? They were wrestling and it got a bit heated and Francis won. I mean, these were two big dudes. That's, in all honesty, trained in the art of hunting, Henry played tennis, we know, very tall guy.
Very
so
athletic.
It must have been a great fight. You remember, I don't know if you're a Bridget Jones fan.
Oh, here we go. I don't know that I would say fan, but I have watched the movies at least once.
When there's a scene and Bridget Jones' friend, so the two men competing for Bridget Jones,
yeah,
Colin Firth and
what's his face?
What's his face?
I can picture him. I was like, why can't I think of
what's his face? I can't remember his name now.
I know. For some reason.
Hugh Grant and Colin Firth start a fight over Bridget, right?
Yes.
And then her friend walks in and they go into this restaurant and they kind of destroy her because they're having this fight over her. And Bridget's friend goes into, I think he goes into the restaurant and they end up there. And he says, it's a fight. It's a real fight. Who doesn't like a real fight between two big dudes? Yeah. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you've seen all these shows, there's nothing better than a fight between two big dudes and to see who wins, right?
Yeah.
Who's the strongest bloke?
Yeah.
So, French guy. Sorry, Henry.
In Henry's defense, Henry is older than Francis, so.
They're still very young. No. So what happens is, obviously that leaves a lasting impact in Henry, who had, these kind of like bromances with other men, like Fernando. When Fernando is writing to Fernando, and Fernando tells Catherine, "Why is he writing to me? He's very annoying. Call me father and drooling all over me. Please tell him no." So after that fight with Francis, he goes back to England and he grows a beard because they make a pact until they see each other, blah blah blah. And then it's Catherine who tells Henry, not for me. No thanks. I don't like this beard, please. So she kind of makes him shave his beard.
And then he divorced her.
And then he was like, I'm done. Because I like my beard.
It had nothing to do with sons. It was because Catherine wouldn't let him have his beard.
Exactly. I stopped the nagging, woman.
It's revised history, people.
Oh. Who does she think she is? The daughter of a queen or something?
Right. Yeah.
Woman didn't like beards. I can't blame her.
I can blame you all.
So there's the first miniatures, for example, painted in England by the Hornboots of Henry that are dated in his 35th year of life. So dated because it's inscribed in the miniatures. In some he has his beard, in some he doesn't. I can see why she didn't like his beard. It wasn't the best beard. It was a bit scarce, I think. Sometimes, if you can't grow a full beard, do you have a beard? You know what I mean?
Again, it's the long, like thin, straggly looking beards that I'm not a fan of.
Have the guys who can just get some hair in their face.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you feel about those?
Like patchy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. The patchy beards. How do you feel about? I think Henry's beard might have been a bit patchy.
Oh yeah, then I would definitely have told him to shave it off. Like, sorry, buddy, it's not working for you.
Wait a little bit more. A few years, you might be able to grow it.
Maybe in a few years you'll have finished puberty. I'm sorry. If any guys are listening right now and you have a patchy beard, I apologize. I do not mean to offend you whatsoever.
No, wear it the way you like it, of course.
That's right. Yes, exactly. No judgment here. I just like a nice trimmed up beard. Okay, anyway.
Okay, anyway. So
how do we to every episode?
Both grew beards, but also the most famous beard probably was Charles V because it changed his face completely.
Yeah.
So they're all growing beards in this. I mean, this thing about men growing beards, it's not like a new fashion. The guys in the 16th century were already doing it. Why? Because they are, in some ways and respects, trying to emulate people from the past, like in the case of Charles V, Marcus Aurelius, that emperor we've talked about before. The Stoic emperor from his origin was a Roman emperor, but his origin was in Spain, who wrote a very famous book called The Meditations. He was a very philosophical emperor. And for example, one of the books made by Juan Luis Vives for Mary I was inspired in these meditations. They were kind of like little stories, moralizing stories, but they had at the beginning a phrase, a motto, and one of them was Veritas Temporis Filia, which Mary took as her own personal motto. Truth is a daughter of time. Slap in the face, Dad.
Yeah, that is a great motto.
So yes, they're growing beards because the fashion is changing, and then we see Francis I in his one of his most famous pictures with a beard. But if you see these men in their early pictures, Charles V is the best example, probably because of that chin he has and how his face completely changes when he grows a beard. You know. But he also looks a bit that like statue of Marcus Aurelius. I think sometimes we take all these portraits of people as their true face, and they were always modified to look a certain way, whether it was because they wanted to identify with other characters or because they had physical, abnormalities they wanted to cover up, like Photoshop.
Yeah.
People do now. But also sometimes I think it's because these are going to go in certain places. So it's you can see later for example, in the 17th century, sometimes people related to the King of Spain, whose portraits, like his queen, painted to look like the king. It's a bit weird to us, but it makes sense to them if you want to mark like continuity and,
I feel like
weird people. They were weird people.
This is kind of something that I think you talked about with Alejandro when he was on about the quality of art and the idea that we use filters now on our phones.
Exactly. And nothing has changed from the 16th century. Now it's a bit more democratic because everybody has a phone, especially with now this AI and all these filters and everything we have. And, we can filter our face and give a different version of ourselves.
Yep.
In the 16th century, the elites could only do this because to achieve it, you would have to have something like a portrait painted, right?
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
didn't have iPhones, as far as I know.
No, and you need money and connections to be able to do that,
Exactly.
and the average person probably didn't have either.
So it would be very interesting to compare the transformation of the image of these three men. It's triple, not parallel lives, but parallel lives, a trio.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
Charles is right in there. You can't dissociate Francis I and Henry VIII from Charles V. They're just,
yeah. Were they
yeah.
all about the same age? Like, I forget where Charles comes in age-wise.
Okay, so the eldest was Henry, born in 1491.
Mm.
Then Francis was born in 1494, and Charles was born
In the toilet.
in the toilet again. We're gonna have to go and find this toilet one day and do a live Instagram from the toilet where Charles V was born, 1500.
Oh,
So it's very easy to remember Charles V. And then Henry's just almost 10 years older than him, and
yeah.
Francis is 6. So so Charles is the youngest, but ends up being the most powerful. And this
Yeah.
is because the monarchies are transforming, and the Spanish monarchy is the first one to get super big, like this. And especially with that marriage of crybaby Philip of, Philip of Habsburg and Juana the First of Castile.
Yeah. Well, so we got Crybaby in there. We haven't called
Who
Henry
might have
the
been
Tool.
sane, and everybody's calling her crazy, remember?
Right. Yes.
She might have been like, nah, I'm just going there. Whatever. I can't deal with the bros. I can't deal with these bros.
There we go again. Back to the bros.
Because Philip and Fernando were like the biggest rivals. Remember, Fernando probably poisoned Philip
Yeah.
because
Right.
he was crying too much.
That's why he did it. He didn't want to take the power from him. He was like, I'm annoyed with this guy.
Ugh.
My daughter deserves better. That's me.
I can imagine him in a banquet, Philip just blah, 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 and he I'm making a gesture like,
It's time to poison.
it's time to poison him. I would give him a shot, for a couple of weeks, and yikes.
Oh my gosh.
And poor Juana being like, I'm next. I mean, there had been fathers who had killed their. I mean, there was suspicion later on that Philip II killed his own son or had his own son murdered. We think the Habsburgs are really cool because they're marrying their cousins.
Well, this is interesting.
They're worse than that.
Yeah. We have some more parallels here. Like now
So many parallels. I mean, yes, they are the most powerful men in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
Big patrons of the art because the art is bubbling in Italy. So they're recruiting all these leading and in Flanders and in a place like Germany with the printing press and Holbein, who comes from a somewhat different space, but it's the Renaissance. It's just spreading through, like Alejandro said, from the northern part of Europe, especially from that area that we know as Flanders, but it gets bigger. And Holbein comes from the empire, and he's worked for Charles and his brother Fernando, born in the same place as Catherine of Aragon in Alcalá de Henares, who then ends up being emperor, Holy Roman Emperor after Charles V. So these guys are a big deal. I don't know why in Tudor books this is not made like a big deal in the Tudor books, because, for example, in 1557 we have the gifts that Mary the First and Philip, King and Queen of England, received, and she received a lute with the pictures of Fernando the Emperor and his wife and this and that. And why is this not in the forefront of like the art, the Tudor books in this sense? I don't know, because this is very, very important. These are connections that make, again, the court of the English court in the time of Mary the First, a European court, something that was lost after the death of Catherine of Aragon. Boom.
Wow. I'm glad we brought Charles V into this. Now I wish we had done the whole episode on all three of them, but in a way
Oh.
we've kind of talked about it.
Yes,
But it's
yes.
interesting to look at these three men in power at the time and how they each behaved differently and what their lives looked like and how it ended for each of them. It's interesting to me.
And how they each use the women in their lives, which are very useful to them in many places and in context, but at times they just use them because Charles marries his very dear sister, Eleanor, to Francis, who humiliates her beyond. It's appalling what he does to her, and how the most powerful man allows this to happen to his own sister is very telling of how brutal it is to women, royal women, women in the elite.
Yeah.
So they could be also great patrons of the arts and all that, but they were always, always behind these men and always waiting for these men to decide about their lives. So very hard. And in that's a parallel with how Henry treated Catherine and his own daughter, because your wife is someone who came from abroad, right?
Yeah.
But your daughter is someone you had with someone, even if she wasn't, even if you think it's not a valid marriage or whatever, that's still your daughter. He never said Mary wasn't his daughter, did he?
No. Nope, not once.
So how can you treat your own blood like that?
Yeah.
This guy was not well in the head.
I feel like there are so many more similarities, and as you were talking, all of these ideas were coming into my head, and now, of course, many of them have escaped out through my ears.
Well, and then how can you, for example, have a daughter with Anne Boleyn, make her princess, and 2 years later she's a bastard? You do the exact same thing to your other daughter?
Yeah.
Who you fought to have? You know what happens then? You die and they become queens.
Yeah. I also see some similarity between Henry and his sister Mary Rose and Francis and his sister Marguerite. Like they both seem to be very close to their sisters and let their sisters kind of do whatever they wanted. But when it came to their own children, that was a different story.
You're right. That's a very interesting point you brought up. Yes, Marguerite has one of my favorite pictures of all time
With the parrot.
Well, she looks so much like Francis too.
Yeah.
So that's another time where we need to think, did these look so alike? Or is the artist trying to convey this is Francis's sister? And she did look somewhat similar, but they just made it look alike.
Yeah.
Hasbrook's look alike too, in some pictures, and in others don't look so much alike. But the colors in that picture, just her majesty, it is one of those pictures that you like, this is why we like the Renaissance, right? And I want to see that parrot in real life. Melanie Taylor's going to love this reference. I've been looking at parrots again not long ago, so I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
So yes, and then she has a very interesting religious life, right? Like Anne Boleyn. So I think the French court is a place where women get a taste of the Reformation. And Anne Boleyn, this is when Anne Boleyn's faith could have been reshaped. Not in the court of Margaret of Austria, who was a strict Catholic, or in the court of Catherine of Aragon, who was a strict Catholic, but with Marguerite d'Angoulême, and in that kind of like, maybe we're playing with the idea. That could have been the place where she had access to readings that changed the way she thought about, her own faith and how faith should be in England. And that was a big point she used against Catherine of Aragon, the Reformation, wasn't it? And that's how she got Henry on board too. So these women are influencing the men and also the women from other courts, because these are the women to receive women from other courts. The women are moving.
Yeah. Speaking of women, Francis liked him. Clearly, Henry did. Henry did.
You want me to make a fool of myself like the last time I spoke about that?
Well, let's just say they
He
were
was a
kings.
womanizer. He
Yeah,
was a womanizer.
they both were womanizers in their own right. I have always gotten the impression that Francis was more visibly and well known to be a womanizer, whereas Henry, I feel like it seemed like it may have been kept under wraps for the most part, except when it came to like Bessie Blount. But other
Oh,
than
I
that, I
thought you
feel
were gonna not mention that he made his illegitimate son a duke.
other than that, I feel like Francis was more like front page headlines, scandal in the
But
bedroom.
wait a second. Let's take it back and go back to Henry.
Okay.
He has his own son made duke, right? And there was talks that maybe he could be married to who?
Uh, Well,
To his sister, Mary Tudor.
did,
So it
what?
doesn't get more, yes, it doesn't get more weird than Henry. What
Yeah,
Henry does, he's weird.
that is weird.
He's very weird. That's ancient Egypt weird
Yeah,
between
dude,
brothers and sisters.
that's your half sister. That's a little, that's a little
Exactly.
Hasburgian.
No, the Habsburgs didn't go that far. They were like,
You're
no,
right.
we draw the
They,
line.
they're
Cousins.
always like, they're like the uncle, but never the sister.
Yeah, the uncle who's like 50 years older than you, yes. But not your half brother. Ugh, you.
Yeah, yeah, I
But then,
forgot.
yes, no, it's true. And then, the women and the boys, the children, the because Francis has several boys,
Hmm.
are used. Their marriages are used for this back and forth between Charles, Henry, and Francis. So, for example, when the Dauphin is born in 1519, Queen Claude sends a picture of him to Queen Catherine, and he's betrothed to Mary. That's why Mary, for example, has jewels with dolphins on them, because she was considered the fiancée of the Dauphin, of the heir, which is the title to the heir of France, right?
Right.
She was betrothed to him, but then she's betrothed to Charles, to her cousin. And that's when the Horan boots arrive and paint miniatures of them, right?
Yeah.
When she's displaying a jewel that says, my cousin.
I love that. I'll
I
never
mean,
look
the
at that the
emperor, the
same.
emperor, the emperor.
My
Um,
cuz.
so Mary the First could have been Holy Roman Empress, Queen. She was Queen of Spain because she was married to Charles's son Philip. But she could have become Holy Roman Empress.
She could have been like Matilda.
She could have been. Yes, it's incredible. And studying her picture in the Prado in Alejandro's collection, that picture was dear, dear, dear to Charles, and he took it with him to Yuste. So it is in the list of things. Just shortly after Antonismo paints it, it's sent to Brussels to Mary of Hungary's palace, where it's listed among the things that are going to be sent with Charles V into Yuste, which means that that's when he is retiring. So Philip and Mary become king and queen of Spain. They're already king and queen of England and Ireland, becoming the most powerful couple in Europe. The new Catholic monarchs.
Sure.
Peter Stifel talks about this. So that picture was there with Charles when he died.
So
Uh,
sentimental to it. Like,
I think they were just flipping out when they saw it because it was so impactful. It was a great success. It's been ever since in the Spanish Royal Collection until it was one of the foundational works in the Prado when it opened, and it's always been highly valued above other Antonis More's portraits,
wow.
valued over portraits of Philip II, valued over many other portraits in the Royal Collection. Always exhibited in very, very key places. For example, Philip IV had it in his dining room table
Wow.
because he was like, she was a badass. Imagine when the future Charles I of England arrived in 1623, incognito as the Prince of Wales, and was taken to the palace of the king, and he's like, ah, who's that? Is that from your farm? He's like, well, it's complicated, but yes, sure.
Yeah, gosh, they're all so connected, aren't they? This is the
Oh
thing
yeah.
about all of
And
these.
Mary is the result of all that, right? She's Queen of Spain, Queen of England. She's everything. She's everything.
Yeah.
She's betrothed to Charles V, and she marries Philip II. It's just she dies so soon after all of these great things happen and then Elizabeth succeeds. Philip has to leave, and then her legacy is just tainted by the Reformation, really, and Elizabeth's reign, which is normal. That's what Isabel the First of Castile did with her predecessor. It's a
Mhm.
normal thing that monarchs do to survive, because she wasn't the daughter of the granddaughter of the Almighty Catholic monarch. She was the daughter of Anne Boleyn, an English
Yeah.
woman who
Yeah.
wasn't, she didn't have that formidable background, and it was time for her to rule, and it was kind of like propaganda worked too, right?
Well, look, Henry VII did the same thing when he defeated Richard III. So,
Exactly, exactly. But at the same time, they aren't buried together, and Elizabeth could not dissociate herself from the fact that she had been the heir to Mary, and that's the way she, really got to the throne. So it's super interesting to see a lot of the work now done to unwind this kind of very complex relationship between the two sisters. Um, and also, like, I think the big impact that all these things that happened to Mary with her marriages and being used and this and that meant for Elizabeth, right? Because
mhm.
Philip II wanted to marry Elizabeth, and she said, like, no, 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 go back to Spain, do your thing, you know. I'll be here being Queen of England. I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, it seems so weird. It seems so weird that he would go after Elizabeth, but then again, it doesn't seem weird because obviously he knew.
Normal to me. It's like, okay, who's next?
Well, it goes back to then we're like with Catherine of Aragon and Arthur and Henry again. So here's Charles V, like, well, I've had one sister, now I want the other.
Well, exactly. It's like Francis and the Boleyn sisters, right?
Yeah,
Did I say that
you
again?
did it again. Here we go. I'm not engaging in this conversation.
Sorry to all the fans. But I want to be the voice, not of reason, because I'm not the voice of reason. I want to, this uniformity in like thinking that these women were almost saints and never lied and never said anything. Let's take it back a little bit. Rumors are sometimes true, sometimes are not true. So I think we should see them all as complex. Everyone was lying. That's exactly what Baldassare de Castiglione talks about in El Cortigiano, that he references, for example, Francis.
Mhm.
It's the dissimulatio is not really, you don't really have to tell everything, and you have to use your power. And for women like that, sex was powerful because these men wanted to have sex with them. So, they might have used it for their advantage. Why not? They were sent to England very abruptly, I think.
One of the things that Melanie Taylor has always taught me is the one thing that hasn't changed throughout history is the human condition.
Exactly, Melanie's so right.
I think we can sometimes put ourselves in their shoes and say, if I were in that situation, this is what I would do now. And maybe our choice making might be a little different now because we have freedoms. But in a nutshell, I think people have always thought very similar when it comes to situations that they're in, whatever it may be.
Exactly. I think we tend to idolize these characters, and if that person is our favorite, and everybody knows my favorite is Catherine of Aragon, obviously. I've done that. I've done that for years. I was like very mad at Henry, and I was like, no, he didn't do anything. No, no, these were projects. These were things that people were doing together. And of course, and I used to get very mad when I would read that Catherine lied about if she slept with Arthur or didn't, or that. And now I'm more in a mindset of like, I don't think she did, but even if she did, what's the problem?
Hmm.
Like if it's the means to your end and what is best for you. I mean, the kings were doing it. Henry was doing the best for him.
Right.
Francis was doing the best for him. The women just had different strategies. And it's very difficult to stop the advances of a French monarch.
I can't even imagine too. Like we always
They were
talk about.
exotic, they were exotic girls. They were right age, which is pathetic to think about because they were very young.
Yeah, yeah, they were.
So this is really the issue we should be talking about, how these powerful men that are already almost in their, midlife crisis are having sex with teenagers.
Right. You know, wow.
Just to leave it on a good note.
No, I have to go back though, like, and remind everybody that things were different then. The
Yes,
age that it was that girls were seen to be women and were old
yes,
enough to get married was very different from,
12. It
yeah,
was when Catherine married Arthur, it was 12 for girls, 14 for boys. So
yeah,
even girls were considered to be ready sooner, basically as soon as their menstruation started.
yeah. And at least Margaret Beaufort was smart enough to put into place like, well, you can get married at 12, but you can't consummate the marriage until they're at least 14.
I'll tell you the truth. I don't think Anne Boleyn slept with Francis the First, but I do think her sister did.
I
And
do.
I think that was Anne's wake-up call to not let that happen to her with Henry. I
Yeah.
hope everybody's happy with my answer because I'm no expert on this, but I've been doing some research on it. And to be honest, it seems the most likely explanation. And that's what Melanie refers to when applying common sense. It seems reasonable to me that
Mhm.
she would have been like, oh, no, no, no.
Yeah, not a good idea. I don't want to go down that path. She learned from her
Exactly.
sister's mistakes.
Exactly. And probably broke her heart to betray Catherine of Aragon because she had learned so many things from her. She had known her since she was a little girl. So it
Yeah.
must have been hard, but you had to survive.
Yeah.
You had to survive in the Tudor court and you had to survive Henry, who was, a very toxic man, just like Francis the First, but at the same time, very normal monarch of the time. It's just Charles V was no better. He kept his mom in Tordesillas, visit her very, very, very occasionally.
Yeah.
He really was the one to unleash all the wrath on Catherine and Mary when he decided to ditch Mary and marry Isabel of Portugal in 1526. That's what got Henry going.
Yeah.
One more, this is the final betrayal from the Spanish again, right? That's the way I see it. That's the way probably Henry woke up to it when it was a done deed. And it damaged Mary Tudor's prospects at a very crucial age. That was bad on Charles's part, and that's probably why he took the pictures. Like, poor girl, but now
Yeah.
she's queen, so
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So
Ugh.
that's why he told Philip to marry Mary, and that's why Mary and Philip married.
I
And
would.
what happened to Mary as soon as she tries to have a baby? She has lots of very complicated medical issues, and she dies.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, Anne Boleyn's daughter, is like, okay, I've taken all the notes.
Right. Here's what not to do.
And it's going to be Gloriana from now on.
Yeah. Right.
Alone.
Yeah.
Only me.
And I do not believe that she was the Virgin Queen. I just have never believed that. I feel like when you are a monarch and you have absolute power like she did, you can get the things that you want without others finding out or telling anybody else. So I always get upset when people go, "Oh, her women around her would have known." I'm like, "No, she was a monarch. She would have had some super close relationships with people that she could trust."
Oh, people are so naive. Of course. Of course.
Yes.
That is for another episode, though. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. It's very interesting to see when women gain power. Um, and there's already precedent, so she would have learned about Isabel of Castile. Then she would have seen her sister, but also the women, kind of she was a learned woman,
Yeah.
Elizabeth. So she made her own choice, and it was a bold one. It was, in my opinion, for the Tudors, it wasn't very good because they ended as, and she didn't even like say who her heir was going to be. That's the
Right.
weirdest succession I've seen in the history of anything. But at the same time, it's because it's a novelty. It's a woman, and it's an only woman, and she just was like, this boat is sinking with me, I guess.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I recently, I don't remember who it was now that I was chatting with about this and how she had so many female heirs around her at the time, and yet they all seemed to be making all these mistakes, and Elizabeth would like lock them away, like Catherine Gray as an
I was going to
example.
say not Mary Stuart after she beheaded her,
Right. But she's like, like, nope,
but
you're
she was
not good
prettier
enough.
and younger. How dare she? No.
Well, right. Catherine Gray was definitely younger and probably pretty.
Paranoia, probably a little bit of paranoia. Power isolates you, gives you kind of, I'm sure she thought she was God's chosen person to lead England until the ultimate end. When we say that Isabel of Castile has or Catherine have these ideas about providence, Elizabeth the First of England too.
Yeah.
Because they were reformed doesn't mean they weren't unrealistic about,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
things. So this is why she has these portraits of herself where she looks like an icon. She almost like a virgin, almost
Yeah.
like a non-alive thing because she's eternal and immortal, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? She died.
Even though she didn't want to, and she held on as long
I
as she
can't blame
could.
her. I don't want to die either. Speaking of Cher, to finish up.
Speaking of Cher, you just mentioned not wanting to die. I find that's humorous. Okay,
Yeah,
anyway.
well, Cher's gonna appreciate this. Because Cher is getting up there in age. And I saw an interview with her and Tina Turner the other day, thinking of Cher and how much I love her. And they asked her, "How do you feel about getting old?" And she says, "It sucks."
Well, there it is. It does suck,
And
doesn't
Cher
it?
is an icon; she always will be. And her art will transcend her life, and she will be remembered forever and ever because she's amazing. But
Yeah.
she can call us and come to the show.
Of
Okay,
course.
that would be nice.
Anytime. She can be the third host.
Yes, you can
We'll
do whatever you want
interview.
with the show, Cher.
Yep. You can choose what we talk about. You can choose if we have a guest, who the guest is. I'm sure you know some
Exactly.
interesting people. So
Imagine.
you and I would just be sitting back eating popcorn the whole
Oh,
episode.
can you sing a little bit something, Cher, please?
She's
I'm
like, she's
coming up.
like, I came here to talk about history.
No, please, just one verse,
Oh
maybe.
my gosh.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. We'll just add her to the list now. Henry Cavill and Cher to the list.
See, I only think I'm the best. I only
Yeah,
like the best.
yeah, the best. Yeah. Well, Dr. Emma, it has been a joy again to do another episode of Parallel Lives with you. Thank you so much.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks for listening to Tutors, Dynasty, and Beyond. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss a new release. And if you loved it, leave a quick review. It helps more history lovers find the show. Want to support the podcast and get bonus content? Head to patreon.com/tutorsdynasty. You can also find the link in the show notes of this episode. Join the conversation with Rebecca on social media at Tutors Dynasty. Until next time.